Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Aaron Jacobs Podcast. I'm Aaron Jacobs, a former public school band director of the last 15 years, 10 of which were spent at Avon West, Cleveland. And today I'm talking about the number one problem I have with public schools. I've talked about testing a lot and how I think there's too much testing, too much focus on the core four like math, science, English, and history. But I'm more concerned with what those things crowd out of a kid's day and how those classes are structured that also crowd out the thing that I think is missing from a kid's day. Because it's not to say that those subjects don't have value, but there's an overemphasis and we need to tilt things in a different direction. So now that I've broken free of the matrix and I'm standing back looking at the forest instead of just a few trees, this has helped me really clarify what was really bugging me about being a public school teacher that had nothing to do with kids, nothing to do with the band program, nothing to do with music. What really got to me about being part of that machine. And it was schools lack an excellent way to develop a pathway for kids to help them find their purpose. That's it. We don't help enough kids find their purpose. And so as much as we want to complain as the adults about kids and their relationship with their phones and technology, do you know why the kids are on their phone that much a lot of times? They're escaping their reality because we don't give them enough purpose to drive towards. We don't give them a pathway to find that purpose. We don't help them and guide them in finding that purpose nearly enough in the schools. There's so much time having to be spent on the curriculum needs that meet the testing needs and everything being driven around that. We don't leave room in the day for those moments or those classes or emphasize those classes where a purpose can be found. And how do we do that? In my estimation, kids will open their minds to find their purpose more when they learn by doing. And there is also not enough learning by doing in public schools. I was lucky enough to specialize and teach and get pretty good at teaching a class that was all a learn by doing class. In the business, we call that a kinesthetic learning method, where you're actually learning by doing and creating muscle memory and motor skills. The same is true about visual art, theater, even the home repair class. And you think about the pathway that way that opens kids' minds to, oh, well, I can, at the very least, I can fix things in my own house. I can be useful to my family. I can save my family money. When I'm married and I have kids, I can learn these skills that'll help me save money to be more independent. And so like there's purpose built into a class like that. When it comes to music, the purpose is built in. There's a task that you and your team are working towards. The same is true about sports, by the way. That's why so many kids love to play sports and why so many kids want to do things like sports and music. And frankly, a lot of kids go to school for the things that aren't the core classes. And if we understand that that's maybe not the ideal setup and that we're only keeping some kids engaged because they want to go play football or they want to be in band or they want to be in the next stage production in your theater department, we're probably not doing a great job of engaging kids to help them find their purpose. And so while I don't have a problem with math, science, English, and history, their overemphasis on those classes and the amount of requirements kids have to graduate in most cases, I think it takes time away and room in their day, room in their schedule to find their purpose. And so while, yes, certain written tests are a decent measure in certain cases, they don't prepare you for real life. And certainly they're not going to translate, and take it from a kid, by the way, take it from a kid who graduated 7th in my class in high school, had a 4.0 for my master's degree, graduated magna cum laude from Ohio State. I was good at school and I was good at those core classes when I was growing up and I liked being good at them. I was motivated to be good at them. So I was one of the few, probably in that small minority of kids that just is self-motivated to be good at school for the sake of the knowledge. There's nothing wrong with knowledge for the sake of knowledge. I'm going to be honest. How does understanding Shakespeare develop a broad range of skills to help you gain employment or develop tangible, marketable skills? How does understanding quadratic equations, unless you're going into something that requires advanced science and math, help you in your life? It targets a very narrow subset of people. And the amount of math we put kids through just to quote unquote make them smarter, don't think it's very practical. And when you see people that are truly successful, like we have so many kids, and I know personally, one of them cuts my parents' lawn every week. He's easily broken 5 figures and he's not going to college. Before he knows it, I'm sure he'll be making 6 figures with his lawn care business. He's crushing it. So the idea that kind of a kid that knows what he wants to do, has a good business sense already, is already doing the work and learning by doing, needs to continue to take more math requirements is preposterous. That's the kind of kid that we should just let him out of jail early. Let him out of the prison early, man. Like, let him go. He's served his time. And unfortunately, because we don't do enough learning by doing, because of how so many classes are structured, and no, doing a science experiment once a week doesn't count. That's not enough. That's not enough. Gym classes and music classes and arts classes. This is why I think they should be more emphasized in public schools, because it is the act of learning by doing and developing skill expression, which is much different than information retention, which is then regurgitated onto a piece of paper. Which of those two things, skill acquisition and expression, or information retention and regurgitation, which of those two things is going to help more people acquire more gainful employment or develop a process to acquire the skills that will help them build the best life that they can build with meaning and purpose? I think it goes without saying. And now we see, especially this is true for how it affects boys in schools more than girls. We're hearing about this more and more, thankfully, being talked about, that schools are so much more sit down, listen to a lecture, take notes. And for most young men, that is not the best way for them to learn. Public schools are set up this way. College is set up this way. Fewer men are now attending college than ever. College attendees, it's almost 60% women and 40% men. And hey, if men are finding their purpose in another way without attending college, and that number is actually not all negative, I'm good with it. That's what I would hope is the case. If you're going to college, paying all that money, and you don't know exactly what you want to do, and the thing that you do want to do maybe doesn't even require you to get that degree, why are you going? So these problems that I'm talking about with the lack of purpose and just developing like real tangible skills and real experience, they carry up all the way through university. So is this black and white? No, this is not a black and white topic. But I do think that we need to lean into way more do things rather than take notes, listen to lectures, give kids more options to do more classes that allow them to get up and do things, to get up and move, to interact with the world. And ultimately, a lot of those classes, yes, a lot of people look at them as like, oh, it's a joke because you can just get an easy A. Well, turns out, are grades really an indicator of your future success? Not always. It's that skill expression. It's the ability to express knowledge through skill expression. Finding that skill that you want to focus on, or those skills that you want to focus on that will allow you to best express your purpose. And sure, my class was an easy A. Absolutely was. I made no lies about that. I was open about that. You turn in your playing assignment for the quarter, you show up to class, you play on time, you don't play when you're not supposed to, and you show up to the concert and you don't screw around at the concert, you're getting an A. It should be like that. Because we know what really counts, and that is how well you play. And those things mean a lot more, not just to the adults that are teaching you. Those things mean a lot more to the other kids in the room. And the kids know, everybody knows who's really learning by doing and who's really on track to live their purpose and who's probably going to end up lost later because they're just really good at school. Take it from the kid that was that kid. Don't be that kid. Find your purpose. Go out and do things. Public schools aren't going to give you nearly everything, and they're not doing nearly enough to give you your purpose. Go out and find it. And don't find it on TikTok, kids. I get that it's easy to go try to look for the hope and look at other people's lifestyles and find something else out there that looks appealing. And a lot of people and influencers make things look more appealing, and they fake their life to make things look a little bit richer than they actually are. So you can't trust all that, but you can go out and find your purpose to learn by doing. Make connections with people, ask questions, and go out and do. Thank you all for listening today to the Aaron Jacobs podcast. It's a rather short episode, but I think a very important take and topic on the number one problem with schools. Kids, work on finding your purpose, not just what job you want to have, not just what you want to quote unquote do with your life. What is your purpose? Let that drive you. Everyone take care and be well and purposeful.